So moving forward, we have another top-notch speaker present between us, Mr. Ajay Trehan, founder and CEO of AuthBridge. The topic will be traditional to modern, how technology is digitally transforming the procurement ecosystem. So let me give a small brief about him. Mr. Ajay Trehan is experienced founder with a demonstrated history of working in the human resource industry. Strong business development, professional skills in business planning, analytical skills, operations management, sales and entrepreneurship. So with this, can we invite Mr. Ajay Trehan, founder and CEO of AuthBridge, over the stage with a huge round of applause.
Am I audible? Yeah? All right. Thank you very much. A very good morning to all of you. And I think the timing of my session wouldn't have been any better. One of the thank you. One of the delegates here asked a question. I think it was Pooja from Honda asked a question about governance and what can be done around that. Before I get into that, and that's where I'll talk a little bit about it. But before I get into that, let me share a little bit of my personal story, a little secret. So I've been a career B2B sales guy for the last 27 years out of 31 years of my career. I've been selling to enterprises, and this one personality whom I dread the most, I've always dreaded the most in the past, was the procurement leader. So for me, selling to the businesses and building concepts was much easier than getting past the procurement guys because you guys will always be smart enough to figure out another partner who will get a better solution and at a lower price. So over a period of time, you learned that you can't be the best in the industry. There'll always be somebody there who will be building something smarter, better than you. And so I thought, so don't mind my analogy. So if my procurement partners and leaders are the sharks, I might as well sit in the Shark Tank and enjoy. So this is the Shark Tank. This is the first time in my life I'm facing so many procurement leaders in one forum. I may have a few butterflies here and there, so pardon my thing. But over time, as I built friends in procurement, a couple of things I learned. So one of my procurement friends is a runner, right? So I asked him, I said, if procurement was an Olympic sport, what would you call it? So he said, it's a marathon. I'm constantly running. It needs tremendous amount of endurance. There are some challenges every day. And like some of the speakers just mentioned, that it's always the unplanned, unexpected that takes away a lot of your time, pretty much like a marathon sport. Another person I asked the question answered it in a very different way. He said, sometimes I feel because of all the compliances and regulations and all the things that I have to look at, so I have to literally be running at top speed, looking at my rear view mirror. I have to be constantly watching so that I don't make mistakes in whatever I'm doing. So business is holding me accountable for all the vendors I'm getting. I feel like Sherlock Holmes. So that was a kind of funny analogy, but so where we come in and where AuthBridge comes in and where Onboard X, the product I'm going to very briefly talk to you about, is your Dr. Watson, or is that one small portion that will help you run the marathon like a sprint, will make your life much easier. So thank you very much for coming over and listening to me and your time, and I hope to make it useful for you in the next few minutes. Before I get into what we do, I'll just share two stories of real customers. The first one is a company headquartered in Delhi. It's one of the top 3 global producers of laminates from India. Produces about 24 million sheets and has more than 20,000 dealers across the country, and of course customers and dealers across the world. I know some of you can guess the name. When we worked with them, they came out with a whole lot of challenges they're facing currently. The process of onboarding vendors is very inefficient. It's very slow. It used to take them days to onboard, get documents collected, make sure that all the documents that the vendor was submitting were genuine and aligned with whatever they were telling them, including references that they were giving to them. The contract management process was very manual and as paper driven as possible. And even if it was automated using a lot of tools, there was a lot of intelligence that was coming from onboarding that had to travel all the way to the contracting systems. And of course, in paucity of time, because business is always under pressure, they'll want a vendor or they'll want an alternate vendor like yesterday morning. And as a founder and chief executive, I can tell you that's how I work with my procurement leaders in AuthBridge. Due diligence always takes a back seat, or you say, okay, we'll figure this out. Now, how would a procurement professional sit down and figure out, what is the financial data? You'll have to trust to some extent what the vendor provides to you. What we did was we digitized the whole process for them, including the entire onboarding and due diligence and risk management. We've been in this business for about 2 decades now, and we are the largest company in the country in the business of trust and authentication. Many of you here are our customers, and we help you onboard your employees, your dealers and vendors, and many of you who are from the banking and financial services world. We've digitized customer onboarding and customer diligence for some of the largest banks in the country for some of the largest use cases. We've solved a whole lot of problems, and it wasn't very difficult for us to reduce their compliance issues by 90% within a few weeks, improve their turnaround times by as much as 70%. And today, their entire process is digitized and is integrated with an existing ERP that they've been using for a very long time. Our second customer is headquartered in Mumbai. This client is, its technology backbone actually feeds 30% of the world's internet traffic. They have 80% of the world's cloud solutions operating on going through their platform, and every 4 out of 5 mobile phone subscribers use them. Very similar challenge, close to about 20,000 vendors across the country, across the world. Very broken process of onboarding these vendors and looking at compliances and risk factors and collecting appropriate document from vendors of different countries to make sure that the process of bringing them and onboarding them onto their own ERP platforms is very smooth. And of course, getting to have this entire visibility on a single dashboard from which they could take decisions. That's where we solved them through a complete onboarding automation and a compliance platform, pretty much like the way we did it for the first customer. We created approval workflows. Now, most organizations have approval workflows which literally change, every other week or every other day, because either people change or there is a need for them to change processes. So the system that we have has the ability to literally rework on a workflow at a command. And I'll talk a little bit about AI in the subsequent slides. I think there's been a lot of conversation about AI and AI in procurement. So some of those are myths and some reality, and I'll try to, as an engineer myself, I'll try to see if I can kind of bust a little bit of that. But we built a platform which kind of gives them very simple integrated workflow and reduced their turnaround times in compliance issues and the pain in the whole process significantly. And I'm sure all of you have experienced many of these, things around lost businesses. We've all read about news articles of people, organizations, large global organizations being penalized, having worker issues because of non-compliances in staffing companies, employees there being, not really ethical. And how do you, as a principal manufacturer or an organization which is kind of working with a whole lot of suppliers and a lot of your IP is going down to them, ensure that you are suitably protected? That's where, we brought technology. We've been in the business of onboarding and authentication, as I mentioned, for 18 years. And this is all that we do for a living. So we said, so these procurement friends of mine, we worked with them. And I said, if we can solve this problem for you, I'm sure we can solve it for the larger industry. We built an AI-powered risk assessment engine. Now we've heard a lot about AI, and a little bit of fact, that could just help you understand AI a little better in very simple terms. The artificial intelligence systems today have a verbal linguistic intelligence, which is their ability to understand concepts and their ability to understand long documents and take extracts out of them extremely high. On a human IQ level, if an average human IQ is 100, which is typically the median level for comparisons, the Chat GPT 4o has a verbal linguistic intelligence of 150, which makes it in the top 0.1% of the humans in the world in terms of its ability to understand concepts. But where are these engines in their ability to analyze data? Now, a lot of conversation here on can AI engines analyze data? So good news or bad news, but AI engines have an IQ of 85 on analyzing analytical data, which means it's still lower than the human median. So if you are a data-driven organization and you have the ability of looking at different aspects of your customers, vendors, dealers, supply chain, third parties, and consume that data for decisioning, then AI is unlikely to disrupt it for a reasonably long time, because they're still solving a lot of problems on the verbal linguistic side. Of course, there's a lot of work being done on the open problem solving. So for example, a simple thing like how do I take a decision in a problem situation is something that AI cannot solve yet that easily, though it can give me conceptually right answers. So what we've used is we've done certain elements of AI in the product to ensure that wherever a regulation has to be assessed to tell you whether this regulation impacts you or not, we do it using AI. It's a concept. Wherever a 100-page court order which has the name of your supplier or your dealer, somewhere in the 76th page on the third row, saying that he's responsible for supplying spurious products, our AI engine can extract that data within a second. And we've been doing that, and we've been using the same AI engines that are there in the world. It's just that the AI engines have been trained to read a 100-page document to say that this person who's the director of this vendor company that you're looking at onboarding, or this trucking company who's managing your supply chain, or the ownership there has a politically exposed person, who's there in India's list of parliament members and legislative assembly members anywhere across the country now or previous, it'll highlight it to you, because it uses conceptual logic, a verbal linguistic artificial intelligence, and not data. Data comes later, and that we'll share that in the next few slides. And of course, we have the ability to continuously monitor these risks for you. So it's not that you onboard the vendor today and the job is done. The vendor could get involved, or could have understated, overstated, could get involved in regulatory non-compliances like GST or litigations, or one of the board members there may become a politician tomorrow. Now these are things you don't get to know on a real time, but these could impact the the health of your business and reputation of your business if that comes out. Typically we've seen a large issue when organizations lease out spaces across the country. Most of these spaces will have ownership which is gray. Now how do you look at that data and how do you analyze it through reams of document to make sure that you're doing business with the right guy? That's where somebody like us comes into play. So we built a fairly seamless platform for some of our customers. As I mentioned, we've been in business for 18 plus years, work with about 2,000 customers across 140 countries now, and have millions and millions of proprietary records and databases that we mine to give you answers to specific problems on onboarding, risk, and compliance. Just a snapshot of OnboardX, which is the mothership of the solution. We have digital onboarding and verification. We have periodic watch and screening. We have digital documentation and e-sign, and comprehensive due diligence, all woven into one platform. So you don't have to jump from one place to another. You can even change your workflows. We are now working on the next version of the product where literally on a prompt, you can just write on text saying that, I want to check whether the director of this company is on the voter list of X city. And the system will automatically, because of the integrations with AI, will be able to extract that information and display it to you as an answer, and make sure that it asks you that you want me to keep a watch on this query on an ongoing basis rather than just at the point when you ask that question. And that gives us, basically every data point in the external world that you will look for a supplier, whether it is his financial risk, his financial performance, his reputational and litigation risk, his management risk, operational risk, to the extent data is available to us. We collate all that, we continue to aggregate it, and we display it to you on your dashboards for you to make life easy. You can throw it out as notifications. These can be integrated with the ERP system that you could be using at your end, because that's an area we don't get into. So we stay very focused on just the risk compliance and onboarding challenge that you would have. Processes works very simple. We just send a link. You could just send a link to your supplier base. Data gets collected very easily through a whole lot of integrations, close to about 160 odd APIs that the platform is integrated with, either with government databases or AuthBridge's own proprietary capabilities and engines. Due diligence gets done. The system tells you that this vendor is in your high risk category, and it puts you in the vendor in an approval workflow for you, and then based on your pre-configured approval workflow, you can decide who in the organization will waive that vendor off in case you want to still do that business. So it gets recorded in the whole system. Of course, contracting, which involves stamp papers, Aadhaar sign, e-signs, whatever you may like, that's available on both sides in the platform, and the contracts get auto-created. So that's again the other place where AI comes into play, using the intelligence that we've gathered. If you want us to modify anything in the contract, we will throw that back to your legal team saying that you may like to add this clause and you might like to phrase it that way. And integrations, and of course the ongoing risk watch. So as I said, 160 capabilities, but these are just some of them. We have ability to look at social media data with just very basic information about the owners and directors and shareholders, financial data, analyzing it, looking at your rule engine and saying, as per your set of rules, this vendor is good to do business with or not good to do business with. So it just kind of brings all of your data gathering, collation, approval workflows, and final decisioning before you start doing business with the vendor on one platform. It's been tested on multiple customers and multiple use cases beyond just third party or vendor onboarding. We've solved close to about 500 multiple kinds of problems for close to 2,000 customers that we do business with. So that's just a kind of a solution which kind of on an ongoing basis also looks at if there are any certificates your vendors must have, whether they're expiring and they need to get them renewed, when there any undisclosed document changes on ownership, etc., and all of that. So that kind of comes on. So we have we put the product out for the first time for a display, so you may like to kind of spend some time. Thank you so much. Happy to take any questions you have. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, can we give them a huge round of applause, as he has managed to take time from his hectic schedule. And thank you so much, sir, for sharing with us your experience, your knowledge, and your insightful session. Please be with us for another minute. And I would like to invite Mr. Yashpal Narang, Director of Procurement, JLL India. Please join us and present him a small token of appreciation on behalf of the entire team. Thank you, Mr. Ajay Trehan, for joining us today.